Manchester United dominant, the Manchester United scoring goals and goals and goals is over. There is no more dominancy, and you will see that for the next 10, 20 years.
Back in the dark days of the 1980s, Manchester United used to run an advert in their official match program. This season, we mean business. It became a running joke. The slogan survived not only the miserable opening Mondays of that season, but even well into the next ones. But there was always a belief within the game that United, having fallen into decline after winning their first European Cup in 1968, would rise again. Liverpool were English football's dominant force by then and their glorious peak. But their club's chief executive, Peter Robinson, often warned of the danger. That lot down the East Lancs Road would get their act together sooner or later. Sure enough, they did. After years of struggle, Alex Ferguson, no knighthood in those days, got to the grips with the flattering institution and through sheer force of will, dragged United out of the doldrums, winning the club's first league title in 26 years, and as they say, the rest is the glorious history. How prophetic of a quote. Rarely has a club meant business like United did under Ferguson through the 90s and 2000s, right up to his retirement in 2013, at which point the Glazer family started to run it their way, and the footballing empire Ferguson had so painstakingly built was allowed to crumble once more. If the Glazers ever meant business, it was strictly in the corporate sense. The extent of United's struggles in the post-Ferguson years is remarkable. So much money spent, so little success, so little joy, so little sense of direction or purpose. Their trophy successes have been beyond the dreams of most clubs. The FA Cup under Louis van Gaal, the League Cup and Europa League under Mourinho, the Carabao Cup and FA Cup under Ten Hag. But for a club of United's size, history, and wealth, those have been meager, miserable pickings. And yet, rivals have always shared the same expectation. The darkest hour is just before dawn. Sooner or later, that lot will get their act together. But here we are, a 15th place finish and a season capped by a European final defeat. United have looked bleak before, the chaos of 2013-14, the toxicity of Mourinho's final Mondays, the crisis of 2022, but never this bleak, never this directionless. Where did it all go wrong? Ask most fans and the answer is instinctive. The dreadful day Sir Alex left. On the surface, it makes sense. The one true leader departs and the flock scatters. But the reality is harsher. Rome wasn't built in a day, and Manchester United wasn't destroyed overnight. Even with Ferguson, United were already on borrowed time. The Glazer takeover had hollowed the club from the inside. David Gill departed. Football was evolving into a director-led, data-driven era, and United were standing still. Ferguson's retirement wasn't the disaster. It was the last line of defense collapsing, exposing the chaos beneath. That word, drifting. United have spent so much of the past decade drifting, going nowhere. One step forward, two steps back. More bust than boom, far more bad signings than good. There are parallels with Liverpool's decline in the 90s, not just in the way things crumbled and standards slipped so quickly, but in the naive assumption that this is all just a bit of readjustment after a little turbulence, and that sooner or later the natural order will be restored. That was the theme between Liverpool's 18th league title in 1990 and their 19th 3 decades later. Their former defender John Scales, one of the several big money acquisitions in the mid-1990s, reflected. There was still a feeling at Liverpool that it was a matter of when, not if, they got back to winning titles. Steve Nicol, a Liverpool stalwart of the 1980s, recalled suddenly feeling in the early 90s, "Okay, we're not in the best shape here, This is going to take a little bit longer than I thought. Before you knew it, it was 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Sound familiar? United are not approaching the 20-year stage yet, but it is 12 years since their last Premier League title. Last season was one where United were supposed to mean business. The new resume takeover with Onycs and time to put the United back in Manchester. And that's judging by the numerous bold statements from Sir Jim Ratcliffe. He talked thoroughly of their ambitions and grand vision, and even a universal club-wide playing style. We'll decide. The team of people, it will be us plus the CEO, sporting director, probably the recruitment guys, what the style of football is, and that will be the Manchester United style of football, and the coach will have to play that style of football. And even more about bringing in the right people at levels to the executive team, Dave Brentford, football director Dan Ashworth, Omar Barada, Christopher Vivel, and the players for their new era. And yet, a year later, are they any closer? 4 months after that declaration about philosophy, United held talks with coaches as stylistically opposed as Thomas Tuchel and De Zerbi, but ultimately chose to retain a Ten Hag that finished 8th with the worst United finish in modern history. And oops, the club has set a new worst record again. And 4 months after choosing to trigger Ten Hag's extension, they sacked him. And their next move was to hire a back three manager with a squad ill-equipped for that task. And sure enough, the executive team wasn't prone to layoffs and change. 2 of the directors have left, Ashworth sacked just 4 months into the job, and Brailsford leaving to focus on cycling side of Onycs again. Even the summer transfer window feels like a gamble, backing Amorim trying to sell all 4 wingers, Rashford, Garnacho, Anthony and Sancho. Although it's more disciplinary than anything, for sure it's bold, but is it vision or chaos? What happens if Amorim fails? Does the club pivot again, hire a back 4 coach, start chasing wingers all over? This is the story of modern Manchester United. Plans without permanence. For sure though, Onycs deserve credit where it's due. One thing that sets them apart from the Glazers, they act, and they don't sulk and avoid accountability for wrong moves. Ten Hag, backed, failed, removed. Ashworth, vision clash, gone in 4 months. Brailsford, didn't work, moved back to cycling. They make mistakes, but they admit, adopt and move on. That's already more than the Glazers managed in 20 years. Perhaps the biggest task of this new regime is to break the myth that the United job is impossible. Ten Hag once said, "There's almost no club in the world where expectations are so high."
There's almost no club in the world where the expectations are so high as at Manchester United.
But if expectations were truly impossible, would Van Gaal survive finishing only 4th? Would Mourinho survive finishing 6th? Would Ten Hag get another season after the worst performance in the club's modern history? The truth is, mediocrity has been tolerated. There are few bigger clubs in world football than United. But this is not a club that has sacked managers or been under external pressure to sack them for just falling short. You know what actually stands as a near impossible triumph? Xabi Alonso's extraordinary feat of ending Bayern Munich's decade-long reign with Leverkusen's invincible season. Equally remarkable is Gianperino Gasperini's transformative tenure at Atalanta, which also halted Alonso's unbeaten run. These monumental achievements, once deemed unattainable, highlight the stark contrast between true impossibility and United's challenges. Winning the Premier League with one of the top 3 richest clubs in the world is not impossible no matter how daunting. The paradox at United is that they view themselves as a club that has always been on top throughout history, always dominating and conquering. But the reality is, only 10 of their 22 managers in history have ever won a trophy. Less than half, by the way. And from those that achieved it, only 3 of them ever managed to win a league title, and 18 of the league championships won just belong to 2 men. This is not Bayern, this is not Real Madrid. United are a club of eras, powered by the genius of a few, separated by long stretches of wandering. 41 years of waiting before Matt Busby won a league championship, and another 26 seasons of wait before Fergie won the club's first title since Busby himself. It's only that those 2 managerial figures launched the club into stratospheric levels that put the club into a scrutiny and pressure only few could fathom. And now, perhaps because of it, the United job is viewed as an impossible task with unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, that is set in the era from Sir Alex, and then the rest who comes after have to deal with this.
The people perceive the gap between United and them being challengers again as a terrible chasm of void. But it's never as far as they picture it. The story of other clubs tells you it shouldn't be as difficult as United, and their managers keep making it look. Liverpool went from an abject position in late 2015 before getting Klopp to the Champions League final within 3 years, to winning it in the 4th and winning the Premier League in the 5th. Arsenal went from finishing 8th in the first 2 seasons under Mikel Arteta to making genuine title challenges in seasons 4, 5 and 6. Only goal difference was keeping Villa out of the Premier League's relegation zone when they hired Unai Emery in October 2022. But by the end of his first full season, they had qualified for the Champions League, where they thoroughly enjoyed themselves into the quarterfinals. All it takes is 3 or 4 good transfer windows to become serious contenders again. Recruitment is a big part where United have gone wrong. So many of their big signings have flopped, which points to failures of strategy, failures of coaching, and failures of environment. And that's the task that awaits those in the driving seat.
But that's nice, therefore you want to be here. That's a big challenge, but also it demands the highest standards.
Amorim's work at Sporting inspires a certain confidence that he would bring an uplift in performance, both individual and collective. The record of Barada and Vivel shows of people with the right recruitment and administration skills to build great sides. Ineos are also doing their part, re-innovating Carrington, bringing in the people needed and backing Amorim. But there's still a long way to go. There's so much work to be done and so much to undo from the past 2 decades. But to answer the ultimate question, will Manchester United be great again? Depends. If greatness means another Ferguson-style dynasty, maybe. If they ever find another singular figure to lead it. But if greatness means challenging for titles again, yes, they surely will. There's a local saying where I'm from that loosely goes, giant clubs won't stay fallen forever. AC Milan fell and rose again. Liverpool fell and rose again. Arsenal fell and rose again. And surely Manchester United will rise too. That's encoded in their DNA, in their history. If there's one thing certain about United, it's that they will persevere and rise again. It might take a year, 5 years, maybe even decades, but rise they will. The only question is, when?